starting off a tiny bit late today, but that's alright. Some technical difficulties with getting Skyrim to play nice. Alright, so, people that haven't seen this before, which should be pretty much everyone, this is the first stream I'm going to be doing of this, but we're going to be doing a few. So, what this is going to be is a Skyrim playthrough, which is going to be super focused on critiquing the design of the game and kind of looking towards Elder Scrolls 6 in a few years and what we should be expecting, and what I personally want to see, as well as things that I want to change with Skyrim, because for people that don't know, I'm a game developer, and something I've been meaning to do for a long time but just haven't had the time for is do a Skyrim mod, and with the excess of time I find myself having now, I think that's a good thing to do now. But before I start, I want to go kind of deep into some of Skyrim's problems and what I like about the game as well, and kind of take a look at what I would want to change in a mod. So what I think we're going to be doing a new game, and we're just going to be going through the normal main quest for a little while, and then we'll kind of go off on our own and explore some stuff. There's a few things I do want to talk about, so as those come up in the game, I'll be coming up with those. Also, if you're watching this in the VOD, it's streamed live at twitch.tv/megamatch. If you want to watch the live recordings, I have a stream schedule and everything, so if you do want to watch those, just find those links in the description. Yeah. So we're just going to go ahead and get started with the opening cutscene. Come on, Skyrim, play nice. There we go. Also, if anyone has issues with the audio quality, leave a chat message or a comment on the YouTube VODs, and I will adjust them in the future. The audio level I hear and the audio level that's being recorded are different, so I can't check the recorded level, aside from just looking at the meters and making sure everything is about equal. So if my voice is too high or too low, definitely make a comment or a chat message, and I'll fix that as soon as possible. Alright, so this is the first thing I want to mention. We're in this opening cutscene. We have we're gonna want some subtitles on. Let's see what's our volume at. Can raise the music a little bit. I want the voice to be all the way, footsteps to be all the way. Actually, I want effects down a little bit. That seems good. And display dialogue subtitles. And I want general subtitles too. We're gonna turn the depth of field down a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of it. I might just turn it off later, but for now, we'll just turn it down. Adapt is fine. I'm not particularly going to be talking about difficulty, so we're just going to leave it on the default. Actually, what level is this? Let's see. It's 3rd out of 7? 6, it looks like. So, yeah, that sounds good for now. We might raise it or lower it as things go on. That'll also be part of what we're talking about. So,
trying to cross the border, right? Walked right into that Imperial ambush.
Yep, we're trying to cross the border.
And that thief over there.
Damn you Stormcloaks.
There's
Skyrim was fine until you came along. And
what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to boost the volume in my mixer settings and lower everything except the voices, because I want to be able to hear the voices pretty well. Let's do about there. That seems good. We'll go in here. Or effects, footsteps, music. Keep the voices high.
was nice and lazy. If they hadn't been looking for you,
That's better.
could have stolen that horse and been halfway to Hammerfell. You there, you and me, we shouldn't be here. It's these Stormcloaks the Empire wants.
Also, for anyone wondering, I am
We're
playing
all
with
brothers and sisters
PC,
in
mouse and
binds
keyboard.
now, thief.
Shut up back there.
What's wrong with him, huh?
Watch your tongue. You're speaking to Ulfric Stormcloak, the true High King.
Ulfric, the Jarl of Windhelm? You're the leader of the rebellion. But if they've captured you... Oh gods, where are they taking us?
I don't know where we're going, but Sovngarde awaits.
Or a dragon.
No, this can't be happening. This isn't happening.
Hey, what village are you from, horse thief?
Why do you care?
A Nord's last thoughts should be of home.
Rorikstead. I'm from Rorikstead.
General Tullius, sir. The headsman is waiting.
Good. Let's get this over with.
Sure. Mara, Debella, Kinnereth, Akatosh, Divines, please help me.
So yeah, I think at this point this is one of the pretty glaring problems
General
with
Tullius, the military
the
governor,
opening of
and
this
it
game.
looks like the Balmor are with him. Damn
You have this
elves.
long
I bet they
sequence
had
of
something
being
to
able to
with this.
do. The only thing you can do is look around. You can't move. You can't interact with anything. And Oblivion didn't have this issue because Oblivion, you were a prisoner in a cell. You could still move around, at least until
This is Helgen.
the blades
Used
and
to be
Emperor arrive
sweet
and
on the
you
curve.
get locked in place. But here you can't do
Wonder if
anything. You
Vilod is
can just
still
look
making
around.
that mead with
And to be honest,
berries
Skyrim's
used.
not a ton to look at. It doesn't
Funny.
look bad. It's
When
just
I was a boy,
everything's very
imperial
brown and
walls
gray.
towers used
There's
to
not
make me
a lot of
feel
color,
so
at least in the starting area around Helgen. So I think it's just, this is really not a great way to start the game off. It does do the job of getting the story kind of in your face, but at the same time, Ulfric and these characters aren't that important to the main story of the game. The only character that's important here is Alduin.
Why are we stopping?
And Alduin, even then, like,
Why
this
do
intro
you
is kind of
think
neat, but at the same time, it's
End of
not
the
that threatening. Like, this isn't a particularly big town. And it's also not, like, Kvatch was surprising
Let's
in
go.
Oblivion because Kvatch is
Shouldn't
huge.
keep the gods waiting
It
for us.
looks imposing from the outside. You
No,
see
wait,
this
we're
whole,
not
like,
rebels.
wall going up to it. There's a bunch of,
Face your death with some
like,
courage,
army people
thief.
fighting. It's
got to tell them
really
we worked
intense.
with you.
Here,
This is a
you don't really
mistake.
have that.
Step towards the block when we
Like, the most
walk
intense
in.
thing that happens is
One at a
Loki here
time.
is going to run off and get shot. That's the most intense thing that
Empire loves
happens
their
until
damn
Alduin
lists.
arrives.
Ulfric Stormcloak, Jarl of Windhelm.
It has been an honor, Jarl Ulfric.
And this also doesn't really do that great of a job of setting Ulfric up as a character, either. This Ulfric right here just kind of, you don't see anything about him, he's just gagged.
Lokir of Rorikstead.
No, I'm not a rebel. You can't do this.
Halt!
You're not gonna kill me.
Archers! Anyone else feel like running?
There goes Loki here with the
Wait.
janky falling animations.
You there.
I kind of like that about Skyrim, though, it's fun. Alright, so we're going to go through character creation pretty quickly.
Who are you?
Now, who do we want to be? I think I actually want to go with one of the beast races, just because of, I want to show some stuff in, is it Windhelm? I think it is Windhelm. Argonians are probably pretty good, because I like the ability to breathe underwater. That lets us go and, like, explore some stuff. And regenerating health quickly is always useful. Yeah, I think we're going to go Argonian. Yeah, this menu doesn't control great with mouse and keyboard. It's not a huge deal. Keep mail. Let's look at these presets. Some of these presets don't look great. Like, the white on this is just super, like, it's just so bright, and it doesn't really play nicely with the light. Like right here, the white with this light shining off of it just doesn't look good. I think it's just too reflective for what should be like a bone horn. It's like this looks a lot better, where it's only highlighted in a few areas. Actually, I kind of like that one. Even these horns, they still have the problem, but they're slightly less bad than that other color. Like this color just doesn't play nice. Let's look at the others. So we have, kind of like this one, without the horns, but at the same time, I think we're gonna go with. I do like the darker shades, but we're gonna mess with the skin tone. We're gonna do a few things here. I don't usually do Argonians, so we're gonna try and let's see, what color do we want to be? Yeah, that's the rough looking color. Even this looks a lot better, the one right below it. I think we're gonna go with just like a nice blue-green. White will be, we'll just slap it in the middle. Argonians are generally in pretty rough circumstances. Complexion. Let's see, does that change this? Yeah, there's only two options here. Basically really dirty or not dirty at all. And then we dirt options. I don't know what this complexion means. Like, what is this? Is this just he's an older Argonian? I don't... This game doesn't do a great job of explaining that. To be fair, that's not a huge issue because there's so many options in character creation. Yeah, again, like, there's just two options here, and the dirt is white. It doesn't look like dirt. It kind of just looks like they slapped a texture on his face that is just kind of reminiscent of what dirt would look like, and then inverted the alpha for some reason, and now it's white. The color, not the alpha. Can we change it if we do this? Yeah, that looks a lot better, being able to change the color. Although, again, it doesn't really look like dirt. It just kind of looks like his face is really shadowy. Yeah, I think we're just going to leave this on default. Does this change anything with no dirt? No. Good. Alright, scars. Do we want scars? Why not? We can get a scar. Like the brow ridge scar. That one. That looks pretty good. It's like a nice little one below the eye. War paint, that's what we're looking at on the face, the brown. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that color. Or that war paint in general. I don't really know if we want any war paint. We can do that and not have any. Though there might be some good looking ones. I like the ones that go on the horns. I think that's a cool war paint for Argonians. I think we'll go with that. Does that change anything on the face? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, I'll get the horns colored. Seems cool. And we'll do like a nice... Maybe not. That looks pretty good. Just like a browned horn. Like that. Go to nose type. Let's see, we were here? Or here? I think there. Let's go. These aren't too different. To be honest, I don't really expect these to be that different because Argonian, their face shape is built into their nose, or their nose is built into their face shape, so doing a ton of them would be pretty difficult. Like upturned, forward, thin. I kind of like the raptor-y look. That looks pretty good. Nose height. Turn to the side. I mean, this character creator controls pretty well. Aside from like the problems with the UI and mouse and keyboard, being able to like just grab and tilt the head feels pretty good. Nose length. Yeah, I kind of like where it was at. Nice middling length, maybe a little long. I think that looks pretty good. Jaw width. Really thinner jaw, I think. Yeah, that looks about where I want it to be. Jaw height. Let's keep it roughly where it was. Jaw forward. It's fine. I don't want to mess with most of these, actually. Chin color. Is that going to affect this? No, it affects that. Okay. So right now it's like a black. I kind of just don't want that. Neck color. Is that whole brown patch? Yeah, I don't really want that either. I don't think it looks very good. See what it looks like if I just move it from here. That looks okay. That doesn't. I don't like that color. I do like the white patch. That does look kind of like lizardy. I think we'll roll with the white patch. Yeah, I like how that comes out. I don't like this forehead color, I think. Actually, no. That forehead color is fine. The brow color is what I'm not super into, but I don't know if we'll be able to change that. Spots. I like the white spots. I think like white and blue play pretty nicely. Still, the white here is like super reflective and overdone, but that's not a huge deal. And I'm going to be playing in first person anyway, so we're not going to actually see the character a ton. Good eye shapes. So we have like more pointed bits around the eyes or rounded. I like the pointed bits. We have small eye, big eye, normal eye. See, I wish that like it was like small eye or big eye on the right and then normal eye in the middle, not normal eye, small eye, big eye. Big eyes are too big. Small eyes are too small. Yeah, we'll leave them at normal. Eye color. I do kind of want slit eyes. I think those look a little better with Argonians generally. That's that's interesting. I don't really like it, but it's interesting. I like that that is an option. That looks pretty good. I sort of like the green. I think that plays pretty nicely with the blue. We'll go with green. I'm going to leave most of these eye settings in place because we'll be here forever if I do that. Eyeshadow, what does this change? That, okay. See, I wish this was called something aside from eyeshadow because it really, that is not what I think of when I think eyeshadow. It was brown, which I do not like the brown. I think we're probably going to leave that at nothing. We could make it like super aggressively blue. Or black. Yeah, we're just going to leave this off. I don't think it looks very good. Eye tint, what is this going to do? That. Yeah, you could actually make some pretty cool patterns with combinations of these two. Maybe if we make this white. Where's the white? There it is. Yeah, I sort of like that. We have the white ridges along his face. Ooh, that looks pretty good. How does it look if we use the eyeshadow as white too? That's too white. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That looks pretty good. Brow type. Alright, so we can get some horns if we want them. You know, if we have the option of horns, we might as well take the horns, I think. Why wouldn't we take the horns? I mean, it does, they don't look great. That's the big reason why. Although that looks okay. Just like a nice bone ridge. Brow height, we'll adjust that. I'm going to leave it where it was. I don't want to get too crazy into that. Yeah, we'll leave those. Mouth shape. This we might want to play with a little bit. It doesn't give us a ton of options here. You get like the larger upper lip. Like head on, this really doesn't make a lot of a difference. We turn to this side, I think we can see a little better. Yeah, we can have like the curled lip. That's almost like a bird beak overbite. Yeah, I kind of think that the default might be best here. Or at least the first option. That's like pursed forward. There's not a huge difference between these two, although the bottom lip is bigger. I think we'll do. That doesn't look great. Let's do that. The default, or not, that's not the default, but it was the bottom one. Lip color, we want to get rid of that. Brown. See how the white looks here? Not a fan. We're going to leave that at default. Or at nothing. Hair. We only have hair, but I assume this will change the horns. We can get feathers. See, do we want the feathers? We can change the colors. I kind of like just having a lot of horns. Though yeah, I wish I could do this and still have the rings on the horns. Because, yeah, there's a lot of, like, things with this. It feels like this should be an option with the other styles and not just this one. But it's not. Like, you can't have that. You can have it with nothing. It doesn't look like it's available with that. You can't have it with the ring. It's like, yeah, that's just kind of odd that you can't have the rings on the horns and this. I guess they didn't want to overcrowd this with options, but at the same time, like, more options is generally better for character creation, and they already have that asset there. So it seems like making this be an option with the ring, and even with the like curled horns, wouldn't have been a terribly difficult thing to do. I do kind of like the feathers and the curled horns. But I think we're definitely going to go with the many horned approach. Yeah, that's the right one. Yeah, that's it. Okay, hair color. Does this do anything without feathers? No. Okay. So we're done. We're going to name our character. It's going to be Flavius. Just Flavius.
Are you a relative of one of the Riften dockworkers, Zagonian? Captain, what should we do? He's not on the list.
Forget the list. He goes to the block.
By your orders, Captain. I'm sorry. We'll make sure your remains are returned to
Also,
the
right there, like, what kind of
Follow
military
the captain, prisoner.
captain finds just a random prisoner in a prison transport and says they just just kill him, just do it. It doesn't seem like the best approach to handling the situation.
But a hero doesn't use a power like the voice to murder his king and usurp his throne. You started this war, plunged Skyrim into chaos, and now the Empire is going to
I want to keep looking up and see when we can first see the dragon. There's the...
What was that?
What was
It's
that?
nothing. Carry on.
Yes, General Tullius. Give them their last rites.
As we commend your souls to Aetherius, blessings of the 8 divines upon you.
For the love of Talos, shut up and let's get these.
I do like how, so that line, blessing of the 8 divines, with Talos not being considered among them, and then for the love of Talos going up, it's kind of a nice parallel. Although at the same time, this guy would be fine if he had waited 30 seconds. Not really 30 seconds, but a minute. To maybe not force them to get on with it.
You Imperial bastards!
Justice!
Death to the Stormcloaks!
As fearless in death.
And I'm not a huge fan of how the executioners look in this game.
The lizard!
It doesn't really look like a normal executioner's axe. It looks like a weird, twisted piece of metal that's meant to look imposing, but not really function.
Nice and easy.
I mean, it clearly did its job, but... And also, why are we next? Like, why is the unknown prisoner the second in line to get executed? You think they would be, like, the first? Because I don't know who they are, or the last. It just doesn't seem like they would start with Stormcloak, grab the random prisoner in the middle, and, like, this guy is just so oblivious. Until Alduin lands on top of the tower and knocks him down. Yeah, I do like the meteor storm. It's a cool themed thing. Yeah, right there was a pause for a little bit. And now the sensitivity is weird too, compared to what it was like. Check that out. Weird here enabled. We can save on menu. Save like every 10 minutes. That seems fine. Look sensitivity needs to be up a little bit. I think it's because of I changed my mouse sensitivity since when I last played this to a much lower setting. So now Skyrim feels like it's very, very low compared to where it should be. That's a lot better. Yeah. That's about where I want it.
Jarl Ulfric, what is that thing?
Maybe even go a
Could
notch
the
back
legends
down.
be true?
Legends don't burn down villages.
I don't know this view.
We need to move now. Up through the tower. Let's go.
So they do a pretty nice job of setting these guys up to
We'll have
be
to carry this one on our backs.
looking as if they're injured, but at the same time, like all these people didn't really seem like they were
Another
over
second
there.
out there with the dragon, and they'd both be dead.
Now.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it's a good setup for a cinematic first start. Maybe this guy, like what was that guy doing? This was already broken when he went over there. Like that was already like that. So what was he going to do? Like, you can't climb up here. You can't get through that anyway. So why was he here? He was literally here just so the player sees him and he gets killed. There was no point to being here. Oh! I do kind of like this setup of jumping, because I think you can just like fail and jump there, and nothing bad really happens. But it's cool that that's an option. You can like explore this abandoned city, not city, but it's not really abandoned. Currently being destroyed city, town. Go out this way.
You need to get over here now. That boy, you're doing great. Toro! God, everyone get
Yeah, I feel like the kid would probably be freaking out a little more in this
Still alive,
situation.
prisoner. Keep close to me if you want to stay that way. Gunnar, take care of the boy. I have to find General Tullius and join the defense.
Actually, I do like Hadvar in this opening segment, because I think it does show that, like, yeah, he wasn't super on board with the idea of the captain executing someone who wasn't on the list. It's like you'd think Alduin would notice the two people directly underneath him. Yeah, he's well, he just got knocked down into fire. And that was a weird, I don't know what actually triggered that. But that was supposed to be like a shadow effect or what.
It's you and me, prisoner. Stay close.
It's also like Alduin, to be honest, isn't that threatening of a dragon. Like, he's not that big compared to the scale of a lot of like dragons in other media, and I think he looks kind of basic. Hadvar. We're just gonna continue with Hadvar.
Quick, I can cut you loose inside the
I think Rayloth makes more sense in that you were captured with him, so you would go along with him, and Hadvar was also going to execute you. But I sort of like Hadvar a little bit more.
Bring us at the end times. We should keep moving. Come here. Let me see if I can get those bindings off.
And yeah, even with Hadvar kind of
there you go.
Not appreciating what his commander was doing, at the same time, he does let you go instantly.
I'm going to see if I can find something for these bones.
I'm not going to fault him for that. But it is a little bit weird that you go from like prisoner to buddy instantly.
Give that sword a few swings too.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
this
keep
is
moving. That thing is still
this is
out
one of my
there.
biggest problems with this game. Alright, we're tab. This menu is not great. It works. I don't have as many issues as a lot of people do with how this functions with mouse and keyboard. It's obviously not great. Okay, so we have one sword, right? One sword, attack, block. That's what we do. We have power attacks if we hold. Right? That's our moveset. Attack, block, power attack. Yeah, I know our stamina's low. Thank you. Okay. I keep hitting escape. Tab. Let me go in here. Let's equip that other sword. Let's see what happens when we have two swords, right? So what are our options? Attack, attack. Power attack. And we have like alternate power attacks with dual holding. Now, what I always hated with the dual wielding in this game is it removes your ability to block. Right? Which is just like, historically, a lot of the time you wouldn't just be dual wielding for the sake of dual wielding. A lot of the time you would be wielding something like a sword and then a parrying dagger. Or like something like that. You wouldn't really just be doing it for the purpose of attacking more more quickly. And even then, like, the boost from this is not great. Like, I always feel that it's just, you lose so much to not have a block. And it's also just, like, you have less options as a player. You essentially can only do one thing now, which is attack. Sure, you can power attack, but power attack, like, the way the stamina system works, you run out of stamina so quickly until, like, very late in the game that it's not really a good strategy for the early game. It's not super effective. Like, and even like if this does more damage, I don't have the option to block, which is just removing half of the gameplay loop pretty much. And like, yeah, I have huge issues with that. I think that's why there are a lot of mods that like add the ability to time your attack, so that way you can attack to parry. I think that's an interesting idea. The problem with it is with Skyrim's combat system, it becomes super trivial to just do that whenever you need to. It's also the same problem I have with a lot of the mods that add timed blocks. I think timed blocks are fun, but they really don't, like, they're not super realistic. They're not really something you would want to do. Like, in reality, you want to have your shield up almost all the time because it's what's protecting you from stuff like arrows. So timed blocking is a super gamey game mechanic that I think works in stuff like action games like Devil May Cry, where your timed block is basically just dodging perfectly, or like Royal Guard parrying. But in this specific game setup, I don't think time blocking is really the answer to that problem. It's also like Skyrim is definitely, I can critique the combat system a ton, and I will be over the course of this. Yeah, we're just gonna have the one sword for now. We'll favorite it. Yeah, I know, favorite works. The other thing is, like, I always feel pretty let down that Skyrim doesn't have any incentive for one-handed weapon with no other weapon. Just because, like, this is a fantasy game. I think one-handed with no other weapon is a pretty common fantasy trope, and it would be nice to be able to, like, do that without feeling like you're doing less than having, like, a two-hander or something else. Or a shield. Because personally, I think shields are generally pretty dull. They're fun in that, well, they're not really that fun. They give you a lot of good options in combat.
Hear that? Storm cloaks. Maybe we can read.
But they're not super, like, entertaining. The other problem is, like, these swords. I'm not a huge fan of them, design-wise.
Hold on now. What was that? We only want to. If you want
like, they start super thick. And yeah, like, in this, there's just not a lot happening right now. He's gonna basically just execute him. It's like, I wish there was an ability for people when you're fighting them, especially if they're part of, like, the Civil War scenario, to just not, or to, like, give up in battle. I think that would be a lot more interesting. Let's go for gauntlets. We could take the battle axe. It's technically better than what we have, so I think we will. I don't want the war axe or anything. Yeah, we're just gonna... We'll roll with the battle axe for now. We don't have a shield, so I think it's more effective.
Let's keep moving.
It's also like, if we look at this... this is how he's holding the battle axe. And then when you go in first person, you're just holding it directly up. Which is a little odd, because I think this has, like, a weird wind-up to it. Yeah, because when you're in third person now, you see him raise the axe first. Like, it's basically like he's using a bat. Whereas here, at least, he's lowering the axe to the side and swinging. I don't know, I think it's odd that Skyrim was made in a way that the third-person animations and the first-person animations don't really line up like they should. I don't actually know if they're using the same animations or not. I don't think they are.
Look out.
It also feels like the third person is just a lot less dynamic. Like...
Damn, that dragon doesn't give up easy.
Yeah, like, I can't really aim this to hit up. It's always going to hit directly in front. Whereas if I'm like this, that'll hit up, right? Like, it looks like I'm hitting up. Whereas with this, it just doesn't look like I'm going up at all. Or down. It just looks like I'm going straight ahead. Whereas, yeah, with this, it feels a lot better that I can aim up and hit something above me. Even though there's not a ton of stuff that is going to be above you like that, it's still a good option to have. I'm sorry, leaving you alone. Yeah, the kill cams, that's a weird kill cam. We got a weird one for our first kill cam. I don't know, I like the general idea of kill cams. I'm just going to keep the battle axe for now. I'm going to take the warhammer. I love warhammers. Warhammers are just fun to me. We'll just drop the battle axe. I don't want to keep things around that we don't need. It's like I'm never going to use that second sword, so we'll drop that too. Go around, loot here, get some potions. Like, this is what I love about Skyrim. The fact that every object in these cupboards is there. I think I can look in here, find some gold, some books, and just keep going with my day. Like, I love that all of this stuff is interactable. That's like Skyrim's big, and all the Elder Scrolls games have this, where it's just so interactable. Like, even if it doesn't do anything, I think a lot of people have this conception of if an interaction is useless, it serves no purpose. When in reality, interaction is, even if it's like, I'm never going to use that garlic, probably. But I like that I can walk up to the garlic and take a piece of garlic just because I want to. It doesn't mean I feel like I need to use it. It's just nice to know that I can. Like here you have your potions, which is like the tutorial potion stash. It's just super nice that I can walk up to these and be like, okay, what's in this sack? Potatoes? I don't want potatoes. Why would I want potatoes? Actually, I think we do want potatoes because they can be used to make vegetable soup, I believe, which is a really good healing food. It like gives you a nice heal over time effect. We'll take the flour, sure. We can get some cooking going. Like, yeah, you can just walk up and down this little ladder to look up here. Even if there's nothing here, it's nice that this is an option. It doesn't need to serve a purpose, but there's so much effort put into having this sense of like everything being interactable. Like, you can sit in these chairs. Like, what situation do I do I really want to sit in this chair? Pretty much never, but it's nice that it's an option, right? It's good to know that there's enough effort put into these. And that's also why when a lot of people are like talking about Bethesda and Skyrim being a step down from Oblivion, which I think by now people aren't really saying that anymore. You can justifiably get mad at Bethesda, I think, for how they've been like monetizing Skyrim.
Done then? This way.
And like how they're them porting things and not really making anything new for a long time. Aside from Fallout 76, which was... We'll agree that that's probably not the best showing of Bethesda's capabilities as developers.
Come on.
Yeah, he's already dealt with, okay.
You fellows happened along just in time. These boys seemed a bit upset at how I've been entertaining their comrades.
What are you doing that for?
What I love in this situation, the torturer is so clearly evil.
Dragon, please. Don't make
It just doesn't believe. Like, I feel like he has to have heard the dragon, right?
I did hear some odd noises coming from.
There's no way he didn't hear anything.
With us. We need to get.
Let's look at the Stormcloak. We'll take the shield in case we need a shield.
You have no authority over.
I'm gonna roll with the two-handed for now, I think.
Didn't you hear me? I said the keep is under attack.
Here, oh, Iron Shield. Actually, I like the Iron Shield better. I'll drop the hide one at some point.
Wait a second. Looks like there's
Brief History of the Empire. We're not gonna read it.
something in this cage.
It's like I like that you can read those books, even though they have some pretty crazy variation in quality. I don't know if that was the same book. It was in the same series. I don't know if it was the same book.
We'll need everything we can get.
Sure.
Mass.
Take all my things, please.
Grab what you can.
Take the Book of the Dragonborn. Always gotta take it every time we start. Lockpicks and a potion of healing. We have these, and I think this is a good little example. So right here, we have this cage with something in it. Yeah, it's not challenging to open. You can go in here, take the spell tome, you can get some mage gear, because this will sell for a little more because it's enchanted. And then we can go to these cages. There's not really anything of value in these cages, but it's a good way to get your lockpicking skill up a little bit. Although we're Argonian, we have a higher lockpicking skill to begin with, so we don't really need to. Although yeah, speaking of character creation in this, I think that's one thing that is a step down from Oblivion. It's one of the few things that I do think is like, they really did take a step back, because Oblivion had all those options with, like here all we have is, we have the constellation skill trees, which are cool, and there's a ton of stuff here. But I think Oblivion's system, even if it didn't have more options, it had the illusion of having more options, right? Because you had this whole, like, you leveled up, you had to sleep, you would get perks. It felt very classic RPG. And here it's just like you're leveling up on the fly. You can just kind of go in and get what you want. At the same time, you still have to choose things here, because you're gonna run out of points eventually. Although you can master skills now, so you can technically like get every perk if you really put a ton of time into your character. But there's not really a point to doing that. On all odds, we're probably going to end up being a stealth archer. That's probably what's going to happen, because the melee combat is not amazing. Or we may try to go into magic a little bit. I think the magic in this game feels generally okay. Although I don't like that they start you out with spray spells. They just don't feel very classic Elder Scrolls. Like having the fireball was always a fun starting spell in Oblivion. I wish we had that kind of equivalent here. But yeah, back to what I was saying. I keep hitting the the tilde and opening the console. So yeah, we have these character options. We don't have birth signs. We have the standing stones to kind of fill the role of the constellation stuff. But I don't think they really, because you can change them, their boosts are not usually that interesting. They're usually just like experience boosts. There are a few that are different. Like I like the ritual being able to just revive stuff around you. And I also think that's a reason why there are a lot of mods that change the standing stone effects to be significantly different and usually more powerful, but also a lot more interesting. Like I know Enei has a bunch of Skyrim mods that change the standing stones, which I've personally played with a ton in the past. Yeah, I should also mention we're doing unmodded so I can critique everything without any questions as to what Bethesda did and what a modder might have done. But yeah, I have played Skyrim with like 100+ mods before. It's a ton of fun. And like even if you're not a huge fan of the base game, I think mods can make it into a game that you like, as long as you are into like fantasy, medieval era type stuff. Or Elder Scrolls in general. But yeah, to me, I think it's just like the character creation options aren't as interesting. The character creation is better. The character progression is just not as interesting as Oblivion. Even though there are like more options directly available to you, you really don't get the ability to specialize your character.
Where's the way out?
Just give me a minute.
It's like every single character in this starts out at the same like blank slate point. Yeah, this combat is just like, it lacks pretty much any sense of impact. Like it's even just hard to tell when you've hit somebody. Does this something block us with that? No. Good. Yeah. I was gonna say that was good.
I'll make you pay.
I like how the two-handed weapons make your camera travel along the path. That's a good way to give them more momentum than they actually have. And like right here, I like that we have the option, like we could have sparked the oil with a fire spell to trigger an explosion, or not an explosion, but like fire to hurt them, which is a cool bit of environmental interaction. I wish there was more of that in the game. Like there's not a ton of it. Having more, I think, would be definitely more interesting. Like Divinity Original Sin 2 has all those environmental spell mechanics that make it super interesting. Whereas here we're kind of locked into some basic starting stuff. Or some basic stuff, yeah. We have like flames. I don't know if sparks have any interactions with anything. They might interact with water. Yeah, we have flames. We're going to favorite flames and healing. Might as well favorite his skin too. Items we have. I don't know what we have. Why don't we pick up the basket? Or gauntlets. Apparel. Do we have any upgrades here? I could equip a shield and a one-hander. Not hugely interested in doing that though. We'll equip the arrows. Favorite that. This is favorited. Good. Okay. Yeah, let's switch to the bow for a little while. Just to do something a bit different. See here. So I took the arrows from this guy. Right? He still has arrows on. And so does this guy. That's a little weird. I feel like I've never noticed that before, or if I've noticed it, it hasn't really bothered me. So it's not a huge deal. But it is kind of interesting. Because you can take like the armor, and the armor will disappear from the character model. So I'm wondering how they're handling that. So I have used the creation kit a bit before to do just like some minor stuff. But I've never really messed with how it handles actors. Their equipment. Yeah, so if we go here, I believe this is the bit. Yeah, with a little skeleton guy. Some gold we can take and a healing potion. Bone meal. And this way leads to the, like, pit. Yeah. It's not really anything over here. It's like that. This is something cool. So bows have that power, that little bash. I like that because it doesn't really serve a big purpose in combat. Because you can just like switch to a melee weapon. It's not a. This game doesn't limit you from doing that. So I think it is just nice to have that option of like bashing with a bow if you do want to stick super heavily to the archer style.
That doesn't go anywhere. I
Yeah,
guess
but this
we'd
way
better
does.
try this way.
One moment. See, this is the thing with Skyrim. It puts my mouse in so many weird places that moving the mouse outside of the game becomes incredibly challenging. Let's go back to the chat. There we go. Now I should be all set. Yeah, let's go with that guy, and we're just gonna do that. I do like the arrow kill chems. I think work a lot better than the melee ones in general, just because. Wow, that was a poor try. We're good. Okay. I know there's more spiders. Oh! Probably should just let Hadvar take care of them.
What? Thanks, giant snakes.
You know what? I would be totally down for giant snakes in an Elder Scrolls game. I don't know if they've been in it before. They definitely could have. 'Cause I feel like basilisks and whatnot are really popular fantasy creatures. Although I don't recall ever seeing them. We have like the weird magic snakes and the magic anomalies.
Come on, hurry up.
I don't think we have regular snakes. Well, regular giant snakes. Always gotta check the waterfall. I know there's nothing here, but I have to check it every time, just in case, you know? Anything up here? Yeah, nothing up there. Okay. Normally I fight the bear over here. I think we're just gonna sneak by.
Hold up.
To show
There's
that
a bear
that
just
does
ahead.
work as an
See her?
option.
I'd rather not tangle with her right now.
Great,
You might be able
there.
to sneak by. Just take it nice and slow, and
Not the
watch
gold.
where you step.
That's what we wanted.
Or if you're feeling lucky, you can take this bow. Might take her by surprise.
Yeah, I kind of wish
ahead.
there was a check,
I'll
like
follow your
Hadvar would
lead
check
and watch your
if
back.
you have a bow, or at least if you have a bow out. Because it does feel kind of weird that he just gives you a
Easy
bow
does it now.
regardless. And that bear
that
isn't
was
particularly
close.
threatening if we do fight it. Apparently the bones are threatening though. Deal damage. I'm sneaking. I know how to sneak.
This looks like the way out. I was starting to wonder if we'd ever make it.
Alright, to Skyrim. I thought we were already playing Skyrim, huh?
Wait.
Bad jokes aside. Yeah, it's just like Alduin doesn't seem that threatening to me. I don't know,
Looks
maybe
like
other
he's
people
gone for
are
good this time.
super
think we
afraid
should
of him,
stick
but
around to
he
see if
never
he
really
comes back.
seemed like that big of a
Closest town
threat.
From Harry's Riverwood. My uncle's the blacksmith there.
Because
I'm
I
sure
think
he'd
this
help
is
you
like
out.
they're trying to do the
It's
Kvatch moment.
probably best if we split up. Good luck.
Hadvar,
I
yeah,
wouldn't have
Hadvar says
made
we
it
can
without
split up.
your help today.
What I'm curious why as he goes, it's probably best if we split up. But our character, from his knowledge, has never been in Skyrim before, or, you know, he knows nothing about our character, right? So our character may just be here.
You should go to Solitude and join up.
And you can just stay with him. Like, he'll talk to you the entire way down.
If the rebels
And you even,
like,
I kind of wish the game would be like, why don't you just follow me? Or he would say, like, you can come with me, or go your own way. Because if you go with him, you get a little tutorial set up, you get a few different quests, or like hints towards quests. And we use the actual path down. But the like big thing with him is if you follow him, he'll take you to the Standing Stones. He also gives you an intro to Bleak Falls Barrow.
That place always used to give me nightmares. Draugr creeping down the mountain to climb through my window at night. That kind of thing. I admit, I still don't much like the look of it.
And like Ralof has this as well. You can follow Ralof too, and he'll give you the whole spiel. Although I really wish Ralof and Hadvar, depending on which one you pick, you would see the other one later. If you do like the Civil War quest line, and maybe they mention something like, wait a minute. I mean, it could be that might happen. I don't recall.
3 of the 13 ancient standing stones that dot Skyrim's landscape.
Warrior Stone, Mage Stone, Thief
See
Stone.
for yourself.
I don't really want to. I don't really care about the Thief Stone abilities. I like the Mage Stone just because magic tends to be kind of a pain to get up. So I think we're gonna do Mage, even if we don't use a ton of magic. It'll help our restoration skill
Mage,
with healing.
Well, to each his own. It's not for me to judge.
If we're gonna be doing archery most of the time, I would rather get our like minor. Because what I would like to do is get a few different like support magic skills and use those. And getting the levels up for those is gonna be a real pain.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, you've already earned your pardon. But until we get that confirmed by General Tullius, just stay clear of other.
And this part always
imperial
is weird to me. So he says we've earned our pardon, right?
avoid any
What were we?
complications or like-
We don't know what we're arrested for, which I don't actually have a problem with because it lets the player kind of fill in the blanks. But at the same time, it kind of seemed like they didn't expect us to be there and had just arrested us on the border. And it looked like the first time we were really being exposed to Imperial leadership was, you know, in execution. So, first of all, would they even know we're alive or what we look like? Like, it kind of seems like the pardon is an unnecessary step here, because it doesn't really seem. I'm just not even aiming. Wow, I shot right between his legs. I think I did it
That's
again.
the end of that.
That was a real bad showing there. Didn't get any of my arrows. Where did they go? Oh, they're gone. That's fine. There you are, Hadvar. Let's keep going. We'll take these wolf pelts. They're not worth a ton. But it is kind of nice just to get them. Get some potion ingredients. But yeah, like this little walk with Hadvar is one of my favorite parts of the early game of Skyrim, because you just get like a nice little filler in of the world. He introduces the Standing Stones, which are super important. So you'd think they would suggest to new players, instead of like, we should go our separate ways, why don't you come with me? I'll bring you to the nearest town. At the same time, like, Riverwood is super close to Helgen, and it feels like both of them are small villages. I kind of, if they're going for that Kvatch moment of getting there and seeing just like a wrecked village or town,
Things look quiet enough here.
that
Come on,
Helgen
there's
probably
my
should have been
uncle.
bigger, and probably should not have been. Alduin should not have attacked immediately. Like, I don't know. I think Oblivion's setup is just a lot more interesting, in that it allows for some more unique stories to be told.
Shores, bones. What happened?
But yeah, part of the reason we go with Hadvar is also that
Doing some kind
Alvor
of
is a little
Keep your
bit more
voice down.
useful
I'm fine.
to have
We should
access
go
to
inside to talk.
than Raylof's
going
parents,
on?
which is that house
who's
over there, I
this?
think.
He's a friend. Saved my life, in fact. Come on,
Because
I'll
he'll
explain
let us
everything,
take
but
some
we
like
need to go
ingredients
inside.
for smithing and whatnot that are useful.
Okay, okay, come inside then. Sigrid will get you something to eat, and you can tell me all about it.
A dragon.
So yeah, I think this does, like right here, this is a
What is it
good
now, Mother?
screen.
It was as big as the mountain and black as night.
right? Like you've got the nice bridge guard bit here. You have the mountain with the Bleak Falls Barrow, arches, and all the nature. I think that, like, this game can look good, but at the same time, like, then you turn around occasionally and you'll have like, this does not look particularly great a lot of the time. What's going on? Why are we running? Don't want this out. Let's go in. We're gonna stick with Hadvar for a little bit.
Sigrid, we have company.
I want to stay here until
Hadvar,
Alvar
we've
gives
been
me
so
permission
worried
to
about
take
you.
things.
Come, you two must be hungry. Sit down and I'll get you something to eat.
Now then, boy, what's the big mystery? What are you doing here looking like you lost an argument with a cave bear?
I don't know where to stop. You know I was assigned to General Tullius' guard. We were stopped in Helgen when we were attacked by a dragon.
A dragon? That's ridiculous. You aren't drunk, are you, boy?
Husband, let him tell his story.
Not much more to tell. This dragon flew over and just wrecked the whole place. Mass confusion. I don't know if anyone else got out alive. I doubt I'd made it out myself if not for my friend here.
Yeah, and that
I need to
line's
get
also
back
weird.
to
Like, I don't
Solitude.
really think we did
Let them know
anything
what's happened.
in
I
that
thought you
opening
could help
segment,
us out.
at least to help him get out
Supply's
alive.
a
Like,
place to stay.
he did most of the
Of
work.
course. Any friend of Hadvar's is a friend of mine.
And like, the dragon wasn't really the
Glad
threat; it
to
was the
help however I
Stormcloaks in the underground.
Like I said, but
Even then, like, where did all those Stormcloaks come from? I think it makes sense that they could have been, like, on their way to rescue Jarl Ulfric, but I kind of wish they would mention that somewhere. Be like, we didn't expect a Stormcloak attack either, because it is kind of like a weird mystery of like, where did they come from? Move back a little into the center. I don't really need any of the rest of this, and I don't want to just take things
the
from him.
Jarl needs to know if there. We need to get word to Jarl Balgruuf in Whiterun to send whatever soldiers he can. If you'll do that for me.
Yeah, and this also, so Whiterun's closed when you get there the first time. I think it's
Cross the
interesting
river
that it
and
is
head
closed. The thing is, it's
When
just
you get
not,
to Whiterun,
you can
keep
just
going
miss
up. Like I said,
the ability to like get in normally, because like if you follow them, you now have a reason to get into Whiterun, and the guards will just let you in because you did the quest, right?
take what you need.
I don't need more supplies.
Jarl Balgruuf. So far, he's managed. I don't think he likes. But I've no doubt he'll prove loyal to the Empire in the end.
Dude, who's Elisif?
I forget you're new to Skyrim.
I feel like
Jarl
you support
Elisif,
the
I should
Empire
say.
is a bad
Although
question,
only because
considering
he
his
was
son
married to
is an
Jarl
Imperial
Torrig
officer
when he
or
was
Imperial
young.
soldier.
Ulfric murdered Torrig, you know. Walked right into his palace in Solitude and killed him.
So something I actually do really like about the
South
Civil War storyline,
if
like
you
I think the
believe
Civil
the
War
stories.
is probably the most
That's
interesting
what started this whole war.
major
The
quest
Empire
line
wouldn't ignore that.
in Skyrim,
Once the
even though
gods
there's not a
start
ton of
killing each
realization
other,
of it.
We're back
Like,
to the bad.
with all the mods that restore like cut Civil War content and whatnot, I think you can tell Bethesda really had
Murders,
a lot of
sheep,
ideas for it and
hog,
was going to run with
hill.
them, but
I make a
for
decent
whatever
living
reason, a lot of it got
sharpening
cut
axes.
out, and it looked like they
Fixing
kind of ran out of
sawmill.
time. And also, like, original Skyrim was pretty
Rightly
unstable.
stirred up
It would
about the
crash
damn
quite
Balmor
often.
being allowed to
It
roam
was super
around
buggy.
arresting
At least Special Edition
just
tends
for
to run a lot
worshipping
better.
cows. But was it worth tearing
But like, I really do
Lords
wish
have
they had
always supported
fully
the Empire.
realized.
And the Empire
And I do
has
like that
always
we can
been
like
good for
continue these
Skyrim.
conversations. Like, this is such a, from the move from this to Fallout 4 is really startling, because even here, like, this menu's a little awkward. There's not a lot of UI, which I think some people might like the lack of UI. Personally, I think having that actual chat, like, dialogue box is a better way to keep this information organized.
From that treaty that ended the Great War.
Just because, like, in my experience, this
When the
menu can be
Emperor
really
was
buggy.
forced by the
It can like
Thalmor
pop
to
up and you
outlaw
can't click
Talos
on certain
worship.
options, or you'll
We didn't
click
pay
and it'll
much
click on
attention
one
to it
that's
when I
not
was a
the thing you
boy.
were clicking on.
Everyone still had their little
It works better with a
shrine
controller,
in
but
towns. But then
no, I'm playing this
Ulfric
with mouse and
his
keyboard, so I think
sons
it.
of
That's why
Skyrim
like stuff like Sky UI
started
is so popular,
agitating
because
about
the UI and everything
Sure
is
enough,
not
the
really
Emperor
designed
had
for
to crack
PC.
down. dragging people.
Although I think it
off
definitely
in the
works. I don't
middle
think it's
of
as
the
bad
night.
as a lot of people
One
say
of the
it
main
is.
causes of this war, if you ask me.
Let's see. Can I use your
I
forge?
see no harm in it, if you have the skill. The grindstone will improve your weapons. If you've got the raw materials, you can use the forge to make something new.
Yeah, this lets us use the forge.
Did you really see a dragon? I trust
I'm
you're
just
not
over here to
planning
take
any
your
trouble.
allowance. It's
What
okay.
can I do for you,
Don't worry
friend?
about it. Gentleman's Guide to Write One. Let's see what this says. Oh, it's by Mikhail. I like details like this. You have the books that are written by characters you can run into that just fill out the world a little bit. Like Skyrim's world building is, I mean, all the Elder Scrolls games do great jobs at this. So does Fallout. The world building is always great. Some great city of Whiterun, the jewel of the north. Yeah, I mean, the weird thing here is that Mikhail's book is super interesting in that it's all about the people of Whiterun, when in real it's like a gentleman's guide to Whiterun, right? And this is all this stuff is going to be super uninteresting as soon as any of these people are moving on in their lives, right? Like I think a lot of the time the idea is they'll stay in the same place for their lives because it is a very like Nordic themed game. Although I do like, so this book gives you a lot of hints towards things that happen later. So right here, like Sadia the barmaid is an exotic Redguard beauty. She's quite mysterious, and your humble author is determined to learn her secrets. And there's a whole quest line about that. So I think it's really interesting. You can look at this book and kind of see some information about characters that might lead you. Like, because if you run into the Redguard quest in a different town, you may not actually make the connection with Sadia, but if you read this, like, it's calling direct attention to the fact that she's mysterious. So I think that's a nice little call out to that. Okay. I think Mikhail is also interesting. Outside the Bended Mare is a modest marketplace. Here's where I found true love. Like, this is supposed to be a guide to Whiterun, and Mikhail, the, like, bumbling bard, is talking about true love. Though I would never deter a fellow hunting hound from the chase, for indeed why should I author these tomes if not to provide guidance in this very matter? I love that he would never deter a fellow hunting hound from the chase. Like, Mikhail is just such a sleazebag. It's a wonderful bit of character that he writes like this. I think this must have been a lot of fun to write for whoever was writing it. So I love that this kind of detail is in the game. I must have asked that you do me this one kindness. So he's like asking, not. Yeah. So he just goes on about Carlotta, who, if you talk to him, he very clearly has a crush on, and Carlotta knows it too. Her name is Carlotta Valentia, and she is a magnificent beauty who makes a modest living selling bread and produce in the daylight hours. By the gods, I will make that feisty beauty mine someday. Oh, Mikhail. And of course, there are other services to be found in the Plains District. Does he mention Nazim anywhere? Don't know if he mentions Nazim. Oh, I don't think he does. That would have been fun. Although at the same time, like when they were writing this, I don't think they could have known that players would have attached to Nazim so heavily as like a hated character. I also love that he ends the book with who would want to sleep alone in this land. We're just going to take that. I provided us some good entertainment. We're going to roll with it. Alright. Yeah, I think so. Part of this is we've been going for an hour already, and we've only just made it to Riverwood. To be fair, like I could have left where Hadvar was and just gone off on my own. Like, here's Girder.
Lucan over in the Riverwood Traders. It's my mill. Some folks thinks it's my town too, but it ain't. The Jarl in Whiterun owns the land and the town.
Yeah, so Riverwood's just kind of like a mill town. And I think Riverwood is, of the small towns, definitely one of the better ones. Just because you have this like interesting setting of it being nestled between a bunch of mountains along a river. And it's also like the first, if you follow whoever you go with. It's like the first major area you visit. So I like Riverwood. I think Riverwood is in general a pretty good spot. There are a lot of mods that will like add more foliage and more detailed foliage and a lot of color. Like I think that's the biggest problem with Skyrim's foliage is like it's all just this is just green. There's no color at all, aside from green and gray, and a little bit of blue in the water. But like, it really could use some variation. I think, like, personally, I find the Nordic mountains to be less interesting than just, like, forests. So I would have loved to see a lot more variation in the environments in Skyrim. And like, Oblivion had this problem, too, where Oblivion was basically just forest and plains. A lot of that is due to, like, Oblivion is a much older game and came out at a time when you really can't do stuff like having all this detail in the rocks and whatnot. Was not really possible. This is the way to Bleak Falls Barrow. We don't really want to go to Bleak Falls Barrow right now. And the thing I like, we can go to Bleak Falls Barrow before we get the quest. Either from Lucan or from Jarl Balgruuf to go there. And we can finish both of those quests before even getting them. Which is always an interesting option. Like, I like that you can do that. I'm going to actually save, because I haven't made a single legitimate save yet. So we're going to do that. But yeah, I like that that's an option, and then they will react to it when you do. Although I kind of wish, like, Lucan, if you come back with the golden claw, is just like, wait a minute, where'd you get that? Wait, did you steal it? I feel like that would be an interesting interaction. Because Lucan, I don't think he saw the people that stole it, so... It'd be interesting if, like, you came in and he was like, wait a minute. And like here, so I think we're gonna go to the companions. Start. So yeah, if we go down, we can kind of just go down this way. I like this. You can see like prisoners being transported. And you can interact with them or not. You have the option of giving them armor and weapons, which is cool. If you're like role playing a character that's super into the Civil War, I love that that's an option. But at the same time, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't seem to have an effect on the Civil War. Like, I would love if the Civil War... Mass Effect had the interesting idea of doing, like, the war assets thing. Like, yeah, so we just want to tag the giant. The weird thing here, like, this giant goes down so easily. Like, so easily, to the point where if you're coming down the normal way... You almost always get here after they've killed the giant, right? And then you'll have Ayla come over here and like tell you off for not being very good. She'll be like, "What? Yeah, a lot of help you were." Like here, we actually managed to tag the giant with a bow. But like you have basically no chance of getting in the melee with it.
And we show up to solve problems if the coin is good enough. Not for me to say. The old man's if you go to him.
The companion's storyline is interesting, although I'm not super fond of how it plays out, and that you have to, like... It just feels weird that the companions are so integrated with, like, a werewolf storyline, and you have to become a werewolf if you want to be in the companions, to a degree. Like, it just seems like a weird requirement for their storyline. Like, werewolves... It's interesting, but it's also... I don't know if it necessarily fits with them. Like, it fits with certain characters like Ayla, but it's not always the most interesting storyline to be telling. Like, I think the companions could have played out to be more like the Fighters Guild in Oblivion, and it probably would have been a bit more interesting of them just having, like, the storyline of being a guild of companions, and maybe some, like, internal struggles and, like, power struggles and whatnot could be interesting. Yeah, I don't think we're actually going to go to Whiterun right now. I'm not particularly interested in doing the main story first. I think we want to explore a little bit and talk about, like, the environment. But, yeah, I think what I do like about this scenario is I can go and do the main story quest and try to get shouts. Or I can go off and not get shouts and just, like, do whatever I want. And the game will just play basically like Oblivion, right? Where you don't have to worry about shouts. You're just playing an RPG and you can, like, not be the Dragonborn. The issue is that like Skyrim gives you this very clear role of being the Dragonborn, which I think locks your character into an archetype without really your own opinion, if that makes sense. So regardless of what you do outside of the main story, if you do the main story, your character's identity will be overwritten as being the Dragonborn. And I don't think that's a particularly interesting... Are you going to talk to me?
The warm sand of elsewhere is far.
You look like you were running over here.
Many the road makes this one weary.
I love that I can just talk to this random person and be like, can you train me? I don't know who you are. I don't have any gold.
May your road lead you to warm sands.
I love like the Khajiit culture and how like all the greetings and whatnot, like may your road lead to warm sands. Like it's very interesting fleshing out of their culture. It's also why I think a lot of people want to see like the Hist
The roads of Skyrim lead
or
to
elsewhere
many dangers.
because I think they're just so interesting. Like Elder Scrolls Online kind of fulfills that. I'm curious about your homeland.
From a distant land called
Bordered on the north by Cyrodiil and south by the glistening blue waters of the sea.
Elsewhere is an arid land of death. There are cities so ancient, the sands have swallowed them whole.
I love that idea. I hope we do visit elsewhere at some point in the future. Like, definitely, I don't think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be it, but the idea of like sand-swallowed cities, like when we get to the point with games where we can like do a lot of really cool stuff with sand, and how those physics work and stuff like swallowing cities and like moving the sand out and whatnot. I think that would be a really cool environment to see. It's just like a city that you have to explore by maybe excavating it or something. Is like elsewhere is such an interesting environment to me. Although I think desert does get old pretty quickly. It's like this. Like this is just a weird grass plain, and I don't really have an interest in crossing the entire thing because it's just like it's not particularly interesting. There's not a lot to see here. What's this guy doing? Who are we running into over here?
Greetings, brother. You look weary.
Skooma Sail.
Take a look.
No, we're not gonna buy any because we don't really have any money. But I'm not gonna bother the orc. I don't think our character needs to be a beacon of moral righteousness. Then, yeah, the chest over here. Take that 4 gold. Not great. I do like that there's like this little secret area with a little chest underneath. It's just nice like environmental things that don't need to be here, but add a lot to the environment just by even nothing being here except this chest. It adds a lot. It makes the world feel a lot more lived in. Although I think, so the biggest issue I have with Skyrim's cities and whatnot, and this is probably better to explain in Whiterun when we go to Whiterun at some point in the future. We're not going to be doing that today. I think we're just going to wander around for a bit. But the cities in Skyrim are really dull past the first impression. Like a lot of the time, they're interesting for a little while because all the characters have stories. But you also, they don't feel like
Hello
cities.
there, fellow traveler. One itinerant
Yeah, Tolskar, we'll talk to you whenever we see you next. I don't need your services right now. So, it's just like there's nothing in them. They don't feel like cities. Like Solitude is meant to be the capital of Skyrim, and it's like maybe a few blocks big. It's not huge. It just doesn't feel grand in the way that I think it should. Like one of my favorite cities in video games right now is Novigrad in The Witcher 3. And like The Witcher has the benefit of the cities there are not designed so you can go around and talk to everyone and hear their stories because Geralt doesn't care, right? Like Geralt is not there to be people's personal therapist like you can be in Skyrim in any Elder Scrolls game. So you don't need to make every character interactable. You do need like some good side quests, but Witcher 3 side quests are pretty legendary for being really good. So I think that's fine. And it also makes the city feel super real because like there's tons of people passing you. There's you don't really care about their lives. They don't really care about your life. It's just a very interesting area. We're just getting here to get that on our map. I don't really have a lot of interesting going over there. A bunch of stuff over there that I just don't really feel like doing right now. It's also, I think there's a master lock over there. We're not going to be able to get past that no matter what right now. So we're going to leave that. Let's look at this. I forget what's over here. But yeah, like this whole stretch of land is pretty boring in general. I think it fits fine because this is like the only huge open wasteland area. There's like the plains outside of Windhelm and Riften between them, but those have like a few different steps. There's geysers in them. They're pretty different. Whereas here is just like the nice grassy forest. And you do need environments that are like more visually dull in order to make the environments that stand out more. Drellis's cottage. Yeah, we're not going to bother Drellis right now. He would almost certainly kill us. But yeah, I think let's look at our map. So we are. Thanks for the world map tutorial. Let's go to Morthal. And like Skyrim's map is pretty big. I think this is a good size for the game. I don't really have any complaints about it. The only weird thing is like you have a lot of towns in this immediate area right here. To be fair, Dawnstar and Morthal are not very big. Even Winterhold is not very big either. But like this entire area is just kind of very empty. You do have the Dawn Guard over here somewhere. I think they're in like this corner. Once you get them unlocked. But yeah, it's like this area is not particularly interesting. This entire space, there's not a ton to do in these areas. There's like the night. I forget what they're called. The Thieves Guild Nightingale stuff is over there, but there's not a ton. Same thing with like right here. There's just large stretches of empty space. Although in this area you have the benefit of like the Reach inhabitants. I'm forgetting their name right now. But yeah, you have like the mountain inhabitants here that make it an interesting area. Although over here there's not a ton. It's just like this nice terraced area and the geysers and everything. It's a cool area. There's not a ton there. I do wish. My biggest issue is that the size of the cities is just, it doesn't feel like it has the sense of scale it should. Although it's hard to give a solution for that because I think it's super important to Bethesda when they're making these games that every character have some kind of interaction. Like you need to be able to go up to guards and ask them questions and whatnot. Although I do think Oblivion handled that better in general because you could like go up and ask guards in Imperial City like how to get to places, which is a lot more interesting. Like I don't think it's weird going from Oblivion, which has a legitimate like grand capital city, to Skyrim, which has Solitude as the capital, which is just kind of this bit, right? Like it's not particularly big. It is kind of grand because it's on like this overlooking the sea. But it just doesn't feel like a particularly interesting place. Whereas Imperial City, even with there not being a ton of people milling about all the time, is one of the best locations in any Elder Scrolls game, I think. And yeah, I just think like there's no equivalent to that. It also helps that like when you start Skyrim, you're escaping Imperial City. Like you have that context for what's going on. Whereas here, you're just like in Helgen. Helgen immediately gets destroyed. So Helgen is like no longer a concern at any point. You have all the small towns like Riverwood, Falkreath somewhere that like dot this landscape. But yeah, there's no like equivalent to Imperial City. And even then, I think the Oblivion town design is generally a lot more interesting. Like Shadenhall has that nice sort of Eastern European medieval architecture style that makes it stand out from somewhere like here. Markarth is really interesting because it's super stony. It looks very Dwemer because it is built on like Dwemer ruins. And then you have like Winterhold, which has like the Mage's Tower, although Winterhold has its own issues of not really. It feels like there should be a lot more there, especially because Winterhold was meant to be like ruined at some point. So like I feel like there really should have been more ruined buildings around. Dawnstar, I actually like Dawnstar because it's a nice like small settlement, and it's on like it's like a nice little coastal settlement You have the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary there. Yeah, Solitude is just, it doesn't feel that interesting. Like, the architecture in Solitude is not particularly different from what you see in Whiterun. There's just not a ton of variation. It's like Windhelm, Solitude, everything looks pretty similar. Everything's very Nordic, which I think Nordic inspiration is always interesting in games. It's just, it kind of like, I think Oblivion had the benefit of they didn't go too heavily in on one specific culture. Or like cultural style. Just because like Cyrodiil is meant to be like this kind of melting pot of a lot of the cultures in Elder Scrolls. It's like Imperials are the main people there, but there's also a lot more. So I think they're generally more interesting. What are we dealing with here? Just a wolf? Just do the classic backup shoot. See right there, that kill cam probably unnecessary. I kind of wish if you were an archer, it would like check the distance between you and the enemy, and then only do the kill cam if you were a set distance away. But yeah, I think we're gonna make it to Morthal for today, and then we're gonna end the stream. At least of Skyrim. I'm gonna be back playing some other games for a little while after this. With a big day ahead of us. But I do want to keep the Skyrim sections down to a reasonable like hour and a half. Just so I can upload them to YouTube and have them be like single episode things that people can watch. How did I get in this? I've put myself in a situation here. This is the kind of thing I really like about Skyrim, is you can like wander around. Like, we even have a corundum deposit here. Alright, yeah, we do have an actual path down. Like, wandering around and almost just jumping off a mountain is classic Skyrim. And I think that's one thing Skyrim really has going for it, is there's a lot of height variations. And that was something that Oblivion definitely lacked. There wasn't a lot of like you didn't get this kind of environment very often, where you could look up and be like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna go climb that mountain. The classic, like, you see that mountain, you can climb it kind of deal. Oblivion was a pretty flat landscape. I think Oblivion did have the benefit of, like, you had the Ayleid ruins, which I'm still kind of surprised we don't have any of those in Skyrim. I can't remember if there's a lore reason for that, and I do know I just, like, instead of going down the path, scaled the mountain. It's more fun that way. And it's like, this is a nice little snow forest. I like the tree size here. One of the weird problems I have a lot with Skyrim is that the trees don't really feel big enough. I think this is okay, but a lot of the time, like, in real life when you're wandering in a forest, especially an older forest, the trees are huge. And a lot of the Skyrim's, like, little forests don't have that. Like, the trees, you don't see giant trees. This is pretty good, I think. But yeah, it feels occasionally like Skyrim should really have gone for more grand architecture. And like the level design and world design could have been a little bit more scaled up. I think it's definitely, at a certain point, it's a time-saving measure, because you obviously have to ship a game at some point, and so you need to cut corners. It's just a reality of game development, is you always have to cut corners. Because I think there's no game that's ever released that's fully reached what it intended to be. Maybe a few indies have gotten there with like super tight focuses, but I don't think a AAA game has ever not had something cut out of it, just because of the reality of game development. But it feels like with Skyrim, they could have prioritized a little better about what some time was spent into, because we're missing a lot of things that I think Oblivion did better. And to be fair, Skyrim has a lot of cool stuff. Like, the main questline, I think, in Skyrim is done pretty well. It does lock you into being the Dragonborn, which I think Oblivion was able to avoid that by making... you weren't really the main hero in Oblivion. You were kind of the supporting character. Oh, yeah, we have this little storyline. But yeah, Oblivion had the benefit of you not being the main character, right? You were a side character to the storyline of the main character, which I think we've seen in other games before. Like Final Fantasy XII has Vaughn, and Vaughn is not really super important to the main story. But in Oblivion, I think the nice thing about that is you really can fill in your own backstory for your character. and it feels supernatural, right? Whereas here, regardless of what you do, you're gonna be the Dragonborn, and if you don't want to be the Dragonborn, you're out of luck, right? You have to either just ignore the main story, ignore the fact that there are dragons everywhere. It's just a lot you have to do to kind of suspend your disbelief and just like put yourself in the brain, like the mindset that you're not the Dragonborn. Because I think the Dragonborn is like an inherently heroic character, and a lot of the fun of games like this is that you don't have to play the hero, you can play whoever you want. Like me personally, I tend to play hero characters just because I think it feels more natural in these games. They're usually designed for that. But I like having the option of like, you can play a character that's like an archer who goes around and steals things, right? You don't have to be like a paragon of goodness. But Dragonborn's storyline kind of plays out to make that the way your character is, regardless of what they actually are. Whereas Oblivion, you kind of have the benefit of like, Oblivion gates are going to kill everyone, right? Like, it's an immediate perceivable threat that is going to end the world, right? Like, it's the kind of thing you don't have any way to be like, yeah, oh, this is not a big deal, because it's a huge deal to everyone in the world, even if you're a bad guy. Like, Oblivion is not good. You really don't want that encroaching your world and like destroying the cities. Like, if you're a thief, it's ruining your businesses because they're destroying towns. It's just like there's not a lot in Skyrim, like, because right now, if I don't do the main quest, the dragons don't attack, right? Like, I'm not gonna run into a dragon randomly until I do the main quest line. What does this do? I don't really care for that. I'm not really using enough magicka right now for that to be a huge concern. But yeah, it's just, it feels weird that essentially Skyrim right now is on pause until I do the main quest. It's also like, so we can already see I've been walking for a few minutes with no particular purpose, and I've already made it from Riverwood almost all the way to Solitude with no purpose. Like, I wasn't even trying to walk in this direction. That's not a huge problem. It's just like, it feels like there could be a little bit more direction, and this is like, it looks pretty good at first glance, and then you realize that that's the entire city, right? The entire capital. It's not that impressive. You don't have, to be fair, you don't have the loading screens that came along with Imperial City being separated into however many districts it was, quarters, I think. But you also don't really have that sense of grandeur. A lot of that is down to, like, Imperial City had the arena, which I think everyone loved.
Looking to hire a boat? I can take you to any port on the coast.
It's just taking me to ports. Yeah, I like stuff like that. You have the port traveling. But yeah, like, Solitude just doesn't feel super capital-y. I think Oblivion just kind of had that. Imperial City was just a really well-designed place. And it feels like Skyrim kind of lacks that. I haven't played through the Dragon, or what's the last expansion. I've played through Dawnguard and Hearthfire, but never really messed with the, I think it's Hermias Mora's themed expansion with the, like, first Dragonborn. I haven't really messed with that one, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because I think I've heard the environments in the island you go to in that are a lot more interesting and varied, which I'm excited to see, because that was one of the benefits, like, Morrowind had, of the environment being super weird. I don't know why I'm trying to just, like, jump up this. So yeah, we're gonna get to the Gates of Solitude, and I think we're gonna call it there, because we're just about an hour and a half now. Then I will be back in a little bit with a different game. We'll see.
Come to Solitude to join the Legion, speak to Rika. If not, just keep your nose clean while you're here, or you'll end up like Rogvir.
Yeah, and then the whole Rogvir thing, like, Rogvir, I don't know who Rogvir is, I don't particularly care who Rogvir is. Him dying there, like, you walk in, they're doing an execution. It just doesn't have any impact because you don't know who this guy is. Like, I really wish if they were doing this, Rogvir could have been a character that was at the execution where you were at. Maybe they recaptured him after he ran away from the execution, and then he's being executed here. That would set up, like, a good sense of, like, that's why Hadvar tells you to get your pardon, because you walk up here and they're still executing the people that got away, and you're like, oh, maybe I do legitimately need that pardon to not get executed. I'm not walking in because I don't want to trigger the execution event until next time to talk more about it, but yeah, there's a lot of little opportunities like that to tie in characters elsewhere in the game, so that you don't just have all these separate events, and that's something like Elder Scrolls has never particularly done that. You don't really have these crazy characters being tied in everywhere, and I don't think it needs it, to be honest. Like, that's a super minor thing, and I think most people, when they walk up there and see Rogvir getting executed, it doesn't really feel like Bethesda wanted that to be a huge moment. They probably just wanted it to be like a bit of a shock that the Imperials are doing that, and like executing someone that is maybe in a morally gray position. So I think it's interesting. It's just there isn't a lot there. So yeah, I think we're gonna end it here for today. If you guys have comments in the VOD, make sure to leave those on YouTube. And yeah, check out the Twitch live. I have a stream schedule and everything. It doesn't tell you what I'm playing, although generally it's probably going to be Skyrim for a while, and any side games. Wow. English is hard, everyone, especially early in the morning. This is a morning stream, so that's why I'm a little bit incoherent. The coffee's not really setting in yet. But yeah, so this stream will be live. I think I'm going to keep this in Fridays for the foreseeable future. I'm going to be streaming in the mornings, so this will probably be the morning stream on Fridays for an hour and a half or so. I might do it occasionally Tuesday, Thursday nights for another like hour and a half or so. Yeah, because I want to keep this in some distinct blocks, so that way the YouTube can be caught up. And yeah, the rest of what I'll be streaming is mostly variety stuff, as well as a podcast, which airs on Sundays at 7 p.m. Generally, there might be changes with that, depending on when everyone else I do it with is available. So yeah, that one's not quite as reliable. But generally, Saturdays at 7 p.m. is when to look forward to the podcast. But yeah, have a good day, everyone. And I will be back in probably about 15 minutes with something different. We're just going to go ahead and save one final time, even though I saved a bunch, you know. Let's see, how many... Okay, I did go through and delete the extra saves I had, because I had about 400 saves on this game that really didn't need to exist anymore, because I'm never going to play them again. But yeah, I think we're going to quit out in just a moment. So, have a good day, everyone. Look forward to more streams, as well as YouTube VODs if you like YouTube VODs. I have a few VODs up already. The What the Golf stream we did yesterday is a little bit zany, so definitely recommend checking it out if you want to. Have a good day.